Calling All Authors, the Your Book, Your Voice podcast with host Robert A. Lane features everything you need to know about narrating your audiobook. But it doesn't stop there. We have special guests lined up from all aspects of the book publishing industry, and we also dive deep into what it takes to be mentally prepared for success as an author and in life. So please welcome your host, Robert A. Lane.
Hey, my friends, welcome to the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. I'm Robert A. Lane. Thanks so much for joining us today. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. I'm an audiobook coach and producer and specialize in helping nonfiction authors narrate their own audiobook. And I'm telling you, you have to do that if you're a nonfiction author because nobody can tell your story better than you. And we're going to bring you an excellent example of that because I have a very, very special guest today that I'm really excited to bring on to the show, who has an incredible book and did an incredible job narrating her own audiobook. So I'd like to welcome to the show Kelsy McHenry. Kelsy is not only an author who has written an incredible book called The Husband on Loan from Heaven, but Kelsy is also a podcast host. She has her own podcast as well. We're going to talk more about that. And she's also a mom of 3 great kids. So there you go. So let's welcome Kelsy McHenry to the show. Hey, Kelsy, how you doing?
Hi, I am fabulous. Thank you for the great intro, Robert. It's good to see you.
It's good to see you too. Wow. So your book is really was such a joy to not only read, but to hear you tell your story in your own voice. And it was such a great experience for me. I had the pleasure of being able to work with Kelsy and helping her create her audiobook. But now your podcast, I just want to touch on this for just a second here. You have a podcast called Mama's Gotta Bloom.
Right.
And was this podcast, was it created as a result of what happened to your husband Heath, or was it something that you were already doing?
You know, it was something I was already doing. I was hosting events for women, really for moms and their friends. And what I realized after hosting these events is that I could share even more of other women's stories of their struggles, their successes with the podcast plus my events. So that's kind of how it went from there.
All right. And so can you talk a little bit more about Bloom? What is Bloom? And tell us about that.
Okay. You know, it goes back almost 9 years ago, and I will make it brief, but it is a big part of our lives in our family. My daughter was in 8th grade, and she had an undiagnosed chronic mystery illness to the point where she missed all of 8th grade. Now, over here in Washington State, not a lot of people, especially the medical community, see Lyme disease as something happening here. And that's not true. She's now had it for 10 years. And when she first was diagnosed back when finally, after a year of, misdiagnoses, she was diagnosed when she was 13, we both had PTSD from the ordeal because doctors told her it was her hormones. She was crazy. I was crazy. I was making her sick. All the things that you hear in weird Dateline shows. And when she finally got medication and was doing better and heading into 9th grade, I still had PTSD. And I was really depressed and I didn't know what to do with myself. And I realized one morning, I just thought, Kelsy, you've got to find the happy Kelsy again. This isn't you. And I'm happiest when I'm, trying to inspire or encourage other women because it does the same for me, right? Like-minded women, we want to do that for each other. And so I created my first event and I decided to call it Bloom. And what I wanted Bloom to stand for was by loving on ourselves more, we bloom. So that's where Bloom came from.
That's great. That is a great concept. Love it. So
Thank
your
you.
book, The Husband on Loan from Heaven, why did you decide, or how did you come up with that title to describe your book?
That's a good question. It literally just came to me, and I guess I have to spill a little bit of the story to make it make sense, but he almost passed away several times. And you heard the story, so you know that. And when he
Yeah.
did finally die that unexpected last time, or first time, I guess, that he passed, I just realized that I had him on loan because he had
Mm.
another really scary time also. And it goes a lot deeper than that, but I realized I had him on loan for 22 years. And I just realized, yep, that's what God did, is he let me have one of his, we're all God's children, and I won't sit here and get on a soapbox about any of that. That's not who I am. But I definitely know that God loaned him to me so that we could have our kids and build our life. And he took such good care of us and still is, even, now, gone 4 years. So,
And I have to say that your book really is 100% a great love story. It is a love story. I mean, aside from the trauma really of having to deal with what you dealt with, the entire story is just a beautiful thing, and that's what makes this book even more special, to see this incredible bond that you had, that you do have and continue to have with Heath. And it really is fantastic. Now, did you both grow up in Washington, and how did you
mhm.
meet?
So we both went to the same middle school and high schools. I was 2.5 years older. So, a ninth grader is not necessarily looking at a seventh grader. I always did like him a little younger, though, I will say. Anyway, but our families knew each other from even years and years previously. My
Oh,
sisters went to high school with his aunts. There was just always some sort of a connection, whether one of his aunts was a waitress at our favorite restaurant, or my mom, even as a little girl, used to go get produce at his grandparents' produce stand. So we knew the family for ages, and it was almost like it was meant to be.
and so now, was he aware that you kind of had a thing for him, or how did that come about?
It never came up until about till we were in college, and he
Mm.
happened to come down to where I was in college, and we ran into each other, and we'd seen each other a couple times at different bars back at home during like holidays and vacations from college, but I'd never really paid attention. I mean, he was always 2.5 years younger. He was a little smaller. Like when we were in high school, he didn't really grow until I want to say 11th grade. So he was just, I just didn't look at him like that. And then we saw each other, and it was, little fireworks. We would see each other and just kind of flirt and do all the things, but nothing ever came of it right away. We were still really young. So,
And would you mind sharing that moment when when you finally did get together? That's a good story.
oh my gosh. There's an even funnier story that I didn't put in the book, but I'll have to tell you
Oh,
that later.
hey, this is a great opportunity to share if you like to.
Do-
So,
I should. It's so funny. Um, okay, he came down to college, and we ran into each other at one of the bars. I'm with my best friend. He's with his friend that he came down to visit. He had literally just gotten shoulder surgery the day before. Anybody in their right mind would be at home watching a movie and relaxing. No, Heath got in the car and drove an hour and a half down to this college to go drink beers with his buddy. And so he figured out where I lived with my roommates and came knocking on the door, and it was probably about midnight. Well, my boyfriend and I were sitting on the floor in the living room, and excuse me, not my boyfriend. He came back with me to my house, and we were waiting to have pizza delivered. So we're sitting on my living room floor, we're just hanging out, and all of a sudden I get a knock on my door, and he wasn't actually my boyfriend at the time. My ex-boyfriend shows up, and I was frozen solid. I didn't know what to do. And Heath is there with his shoulder, even though he was big and muscles and he could, kick anybody's booty. He was obviously vulnerable. So I shove him in my friend's, she wasn't there. So I shoved him in my friend's closet in her bedroom in our apartment at college. And then I proceeded to get the pizza and pass out with my clothes on with my ex-boyfriend on my bed. And I never heard the last of it. I mean, it was always a joke. It was always a joke. It really was. And honestly, to come around full circle, after Heath did pass away, that same ex-boyfriend had never been married, and and I didn't write about this in the book, I don't think, but he ended up, we ended up going out a couple times to see if we could rekindle anything. And I remember thinking, we broke up for a reason back in college. Why would we think this would work now? But I love that
Right.
story. Yeah.
That's
Yes.
yeah, that's crazy. I mean, what did he do in the closet the whole time? That whole time? I mean, did he
He
stay? He stayed in the closet the whole time?
for a couple hours because I think he didn't know what to expect from Doug, my ex-boyfriend, who
Uh,
wouldn't have beaten him up anyway. He's just easygoing. And but he just, I think he was just so worried about this brand new, he had pins in it. He
yeah.
I mean, pins, everything. It was a big deal. So he ended up sneaking out, like I think when it started getting light out, and then went to a friend's house. But
Yeah,
I
that is
our
crazy.
whole family knows that story. Yeah. And I did finally tell Doug, the ex-boyfriend, but I didn't tell him until, 30 something years later. By the way, I
By the
married that
way.
guy. I married that guy.
Oh, that's funny. And that, yeah, I mean, a couple of years ago, I had rotator cuff surgery. So I can't even imagine going out. I mean, I was just laid up, man, in a lot of pain when
I
I had my
know.
surgery. That wasn't going anywhere. That's pretty amazing.
Isn't that funny? But I mean, he was 18. He had all the vim and vigor in the world. I think he just was worried that something would happen. So I just love that story.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Now, you of course you did share uh, a story of running into Heath and giving him a very nice welcome when,
Yeah.
when you saw him.
Okay. So that was about, I want to say 2 years later. And in
Okay.
between the closet incident in college and us running into each other again at a bar outside of Spokane, um, hit my girlfriend who was with me at the time. He ended up getting a ride from her and went and stayed the night at her house.
Uh,
And she assured me that nothing happened. And, he ended up getting a ride home. But I just remember thinking, no, first of all, I didn't care what she was doing. She really wasn't a great friend. But I was not happy that I heard that he had gone home with her. And because we'd had these couple of times, I mean, seriously, if you're going to throw somebody in the closet, you better at least like her back a little bit. If she, you don't, you're going to stick around. So,
yeah.
yeah. So when I saw him standing in the bar, I turned around and, I'm sure I had a drink or two, but I turned around and I looked at him, and I swear that's the moment I knew had become like a man. I mean, he was a full grown man at that point. And I just looked at him and, anyway, I'm not going to say the swear word, but I basically said, F you, you know? And he said, what? And I go, F you. I was mad and I put it all into it, and he just started laughing and said, F you too. And we were literally together from that moment on, June 10th, 19, whatever it was, from that moment on. Never broke up, nothing. Just finally were able to make it all come true.
That's funny. That's funny.
I
Hey,
have a
so you
potty
never
mouth.
know. I mean, that's got to be one of the greatest pickup lines ever, right?
It worked for me.
There you go. There you go. This is the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. My very special guest is Kelsy McHenry. She wrote an incredible book, also turned into an audiobook called The Husband on Loan from Heaven. We're gonna talk more. I want to talk more about your love story, because it really is such a beautiful one, and some of the ups and downs and the journeys that you've taken, that you share in your book. Um, and then we'll also talk about the experience of being able to express it in your own voice, creating an audiobook of it, and what that process was like. We'll dive into that in just a bit. But we'll be right back. We're streaming live on the Bold Brave TV network. Don't go away.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery, or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to easy easysense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's easysense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
All right, we're back. This is the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. I'm Robert A. Lane. My very special guest is Kelsy McHenry. We're having a great chat about her book, The Husband on Loan from Heaven. I'm thank you for sharing that story, which isn't in the book. So you got a little something special today on the podcast. All right, I love that. Love that.
Yep.
So just talking about the actual process of writing the book, what was your experience? How was it like writing your story, and was there a core reason of why you needed to write this book, or were there more than one reason?
I think there were several. I know there were several reasons. One was that Heath made such an impact on my life, our families, our community, people that he even barely knew. Especially when you find your loved one has passed away, people come out from out of the woodwork to celebrate that person. I mean, even the Starbucks people were bawling when I would drive up. Even a year later, they didn't realize he had passed away, and one just started bawling. And I just thought, I want to do this to honor him and our story, because we did have a wonderful love story. Was it perfect? No, nobody's marriage is perfect, but we really were a great team. And so, to honor him, to honor our story. And then it did become, I think, grief therapy for me. It really became therapy. I never saw a therapist. My poor best friend, she's stuck with me. She's my therapist. She and my mom-in-law, and my poor boyfriend too. Actually, if you're going to throw somebody in the mix, I mean, they all get it. They get all of my therapy sessions. So those were really important to me. And I just really wanted to make sure that it would do him proud, and make me proud too with what I've put out there, and hope that I can even touch one person. I'm sure some will be triggered, but I hope in the end you'll be empowered, encouraged. You'll feel hopeful for your future.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, well, those are all extremely valid reasons, and putting it out there for the world to read and now for the world to hear as you tell your story. It is very, it can be very therapeutic for other people, and that is a great thing, because you're helping others, and that's, your experience now can touch the lives of others, and that's really a great thing. I know you mentioned a couple of times where Heath had some close calls, and I know that there was one that did happen. It was fairly early in the book, and that kind of, when I was working, doing the editing on the book, and I was hearing this, and I was like, wow, is she already at that moment? I mean, I was like, wow. So, but can you just tell us a little bit more about what had happened on some of those other occasions?
Yeah. And, even after the book, I've had people remind me, oh, do you remember this time? Do you remember that time? So there's even started making a list. So not to go into the first one, because I do think that takes away a little bit from,
Right.
right? And you made such a good point of, I never looked at it And if you read, when you read the book, not if, when you read the book or you
When you
listen
read
to
it,
it,
yes.
when you read it, when you listen to it, you will see what Robert is talking about. There is a point in the book early on, and he thought that was it. And that's all I can say. But I'd not even thought about it from your perspective, because everybody who I know knows our story. So it
Right.
was never looked at like differently. So it's really interesting to get people's points of view who don't know us and don't know our story. That being said, yeah, lots of ski accidents. The one that was in Whistler, Canada, when he was standing outside of that coffee shop. He was standing outside of a coffee shop,
Mm.
and I stayed back home hours away with our youngest while he took our two older kids ski racing, and they were actually at a Thanksgiving training camp, and we didn't have enough snow here in Washington, so we go to Canada. And it's a great little week away. And normally, I would have been there, but I wasn't. So he was by himself while the kids were training. The parents weren't allowed on the snow. It was just kids.
Mm.
And he had this thought that he was going to go and get his coffee and then just walk, maybe, I don't know, 100 feet over to this little store where he saw a shirt to get our youngest, who was back at home with me. And he stood outside of that coffee shop for a minute on the stairs, and he just thought something went across his head, and he thought, I'm not supposed to get my coffee right now. I'm supposed to go to that shop and get that shirt. So he went and bought the shirt and was back within a minute and a half, 2 minutes. And as he's walking out to go, again, it's not far away. It's just like right there.
Yeah.
Houses are just this close. And he looked over, and there was a huge snowmobile with the ski patrol man still on it, and it was still running, and it had run all the way down the mountain full speed over the steps Heath had just been standing on and directly into the coffee shop, right where Heath would have been standing when he was ordering his Americano,
Mm.
his 5-shot Americano, which anyway, that was just one instance. There were so many. And sometimes I would just look at him and think, you are so lucky you have, you're a cat with 9 lives. I really thought that he'd just keep, it was always Heath. He could just get back up and fix himself and shake himself off and get better.
Yeah, and there's another incident that you do mention in your book about when he traveled to Greece, uh,
Mm,
and wow,
yeah,
that was an interesting experience. Can you shed a little bit more light on what had
yeah,
happened in that situation?
yes. He had just had an accident and was healing from that, healing from a concussion, and just had lost a lot of weight and was healing. And we hadn't even started, that was literally happened right after we got married. So when he was healing, I just thought, you know what? He just had a horrible accident, and I want to make sure that he gets to go and have some fun before we start planning a family. And we came up with this together. And I just thought, and he went to pilot school with flight school with 2 guys, 2 of his best friends. And so the 3 of them decided, let's go to Greece together. They'd been friends for years, and it was something that, they wanted to do. And we'd already been there for our honeymoon, so I got my share of it. And so I said, go to Greece. It'll be amazing. And not really thinking about the fact that at the time there was a lot of upheaval and unrest going on, not only with, I can't even remember the countries, to be honest with you right now. It's in the book. I had to research that part. I couldn't remember. Not only with these other countries that were having issues, but then also Americans weren't necessarily being welcomed in Greece, Turkey, all those areas, etc. It never crossed our mind, because we're like, he's half Greek. He'll be able to figure it out. These are 3 big guys, big, strong, sturdy guys. These are 3 guys that can handle anything. And the very first day they were there, they took the little ferry boat over to one of the islands. And who knows exactly what happened, but Heath went to go ask if they could sit next to some of the fishermen. There were local fishermen there. And maybe there was a language barrier. I never really, it was too traumatic. I didn't want to know too much.
Mm.
But his friends were ordering the food, and he was trying to hold the table. And a huge fight broke out, to the point where Jared, his best friend, had to actually take him and carry him out so that he wouldn't have been pummeled even more. It was horrible. And like I mentioned in the book, I mean, it took them a long time to tell me how bad it was. Thankfully, there was no FaceTime back then, because
Ah,
I would have made him FaceTime me and I would have seen, but I guess he was just a black and blue mess the whole entire time he was there. He could only come out and feel good enough to the very last day, I believe, and was so beaten so badly that he went to a church and the priest had never performed stitches and had to stitch up Heath's eye. And that is how I could tell when I picked him up at the airport that he'd been horribly pummeled. You could just, yeah, it was so obvious. And the hard part for me was that I felt something weird about that right before he left, but I didn't know what it was. And
mm,
so the whole time he was gone, I kept thinking something could still happen, something could still happen. And I think he tried to refrain from telling me what he'd been through while he was gone, so that I wouldn't worry. And as soon as he came home, then he was like, "You were right. This is what happened." It's just those intuitive things are crazy when you get it, but you don't
yeah.
know actually what it means.
Yeah, and that's the tricky part about it, because when you get this feeling, you're not really sure what to do or what direction to go. Do you ignore it? Do you not ignore it? Do you and you just gave two great examples. One, uh, you had that feeling, but you didn't say anything. But then on the other hand, Heath had a feeling about standing at that coffee shop, but did something
Mm-hmm.
about it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like you just don't know. So there really is this thing of trusting your instincts, and you have to trust that gut feeling. And maybe it does seem weird or doesn't make sense,
Mm-hmm.
but I think you've just proven that there is a reason. There's a reason for these things, and we
Yes,
have to be
and
aware. Yeah.
right. And I did not put this in the book either, and my daughter reminded me, and I said, well, that's one more thing to talk about with people. All three of our children had a horrible feeling the night before he died. All
Mm,
three of them separately. We were all in different states. And I did not have a single horrible feeling. I always did if something was going to happen. I didn't get any. And his mom, who always is very intuitive, didn't get any
mm,
intuitive, negative thoughts. So when I look back now, I just realized that was God's way of protecting his mom and I, because we
mm.
would have both. I would have probably said, Heath, don't go skiing. Been there, done that, but God, God wanted him back. So he's like, I'm not going to tell Kelsey and Mary Lou what's up. This is just going to be, this is how it's supposed to play out for Heath. And luckily he was doing his favorite thing.
Yeah, and that's divine intervention, really. And I
Mm-hmm.
think what you're saying, or what I see from someone on the outside looking in, with your kids having that feeling was a prep,
Yeah.
was
Yep.
preparing, was
Absolutely.
preparing.
That's a great way to put it. Yep.
Yeah. Um, do you feel comfortable sharing about the day of
Yeah.
that tragedy?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. But we'll start into it a little bit. I know we'll be taking a break in a minute or two, but I'd love to at
Okay.
least set the stage.
Okay. You want me to
So
go?
yeah, please.
Okay. So just a normal, beautiful sunny day, on the ski mountain. We call it a bluebird day when the sun's out, and you just all you want to do is be up there skiing. And for Heath, that was always the ultimate. It was a
Yeah.
beautiful snowbird day, and I was back at home about an hour and a half away with my youngest again, and waiting for him to get out of school so that we could drive up and meet Heath. Now the other two kids, Mary Kate and Nico, were both at separate colleges, separate states. So Smith and I were going to drive up. We were going to meet friends for dinner at the lodge, and status quo, just your regular weekend. We went every single weekend because our kids ski race. So when your kids are ski racing, you're a ski mom and a ski dad, and you're up there every weekend, whether you want to be or not, rain, snow, sleet. And I was stepping out of the shower, and I got a call from our friend Joe, and I knew Joe was skiing with Heath. And I didn't think anything about it because there's so many times when your kid or your spouse's phone battery dies, especially on the mountain. So I didn't think anything of it. I figured he borrowed Joe's phone. And then he said, everything's fine. but there's been an accident. And it's like, okay, what happened? And he goes, well, here, let's have the ski patrol guy wants to talk to you. And so Joe fills me in a tiny bit of what's happening. Basically, that Heath kind of didn't feel well, stumbled against a tree, didn't feel well, sat down, and then wanted to lay down. That's when they got the ski patrol. So the ski patrol wants to talk to me on the phone. And I said immediately, because once I realized that Heath was laying down on the snow, not necessarily comprehending anything, and that ski patrol wanted to talk to me, I realized I needed to see my husband. So I said, Joe, put me on FaceTime. So while I'm looking at Heath and just trying to get a sense of where he's at, how he's feeling, the ski patrol has got his face in there and he's talking to me and asking me questions, assuming that this accident might have something to do with a previous accident that Heath had 22 years earlier. And I knew absolutely that it didn't. There was just no reason that it would have anything to do with it. And once they said that, he was not able to, talk, and I asked Joe. Joe said he kind of sounds like he's gurgly, and so I made him put the phone closer to, so I could hear, and then I had him put the phone towards Heath's ear, and I was just like, I love you, everything's going to be fine. And right around the same time, Joe's daughter, Sydney, was adamant that a helicopter come up and get him, because it was just all moving pretty quickly. Things weren't going really well. And it was so surreal, though, because, I'm sitting here with my towel wrapped around me, wet hair, FaceTiming my husband who's laying on the ground, but there's no sign of trauma. It's all white. There's really no sign of trauma. There's no blood, not to be graphic, but there's nothing. It's just him laying there, kind of struggling to breathe, eyes still open, tracked me when I talked to him, which I got, on camera, which just, really makes me happy. And then I was able to speak to him, and I'm sure he heard me. I feel it. It was just, yeah.
Yeah, we got to take our break, but I do want to continue this because that was a good setup of what had happened, and then we'll get into the aftermath when we come back. This is the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. My very special guest is Kelsy McHenry. She wrote an incredible book called The Husband on Loan from Heaven. We're going to talk more about that when we come back here. We're streaming live on the Bold Brave TV network.
Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality, but it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating? Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like, it was almost instant. Like, I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. It feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic on the BBM Global Network, Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of The Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on The Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Welcome back. This is the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. My very special guest is Kelsy McHenry. We were just in the middle of Kelsy sharing the story of that moment when her husband was taken back to heaven. And so there you were, you're FaceTiming, and you're able to see your husband. He is lying on the ground. You're with ski patrol. They're asking questions. Um, there wasn't really any indication that there was something. There was, like you say, there was no blood. It wasn't anything to really see that it was
Right.
that serious. So uh, you mentioned that airlift, a helicopter, was going to come down and take him to the hospital. So what happened after when that happened? When the helicopter came.
I immediately knew that I needed to figure out which hotel, I wish it was a hotel, which hospital the flight was going to. Before they put him on, they told me the gal from the flight, one of the gals from the team on the flight, said that they would call me from the air to let me know which hospital to go to. So in my head, I'm thinking, okay, get dressed real quick. I've got 20 minutes to get either north to Spokane or east or west to Spokane or Coeur d'Alene, about the same amount of time. And so as I'm trying to get dressed, I'm making phone calls to the hospitals. Are you expecting any life flights? No, no, no. And then finally I called back again, and a gal said, we're expecting an ambulance from Sandpoint. And I thought, no, she's wrong. It's a helicopter from Schweitzer, and Sandpoint is the town where Schweitzer Mountain is based at.
I see.
So I just thought, all right, well, I don't have time to waste. And I really wasn't, because he'd been through so many other things,
Yeah.
scary things. I wasn't super stressed until I realized that she hadn't called me back. She said she would call back in the flight. I figured the flight would be 20 minutes, 30 minutes. It's not far. It's a helicopter. And that really started my panic rising and my heart beating, and just kind of that whole clammy, sweaty, like, oh my God, what's happening? So I'm throwing my clothes on. At the same time, I'm trying to make plans for somebody to come and take care of Smith, my youngest, when he got home from school, who was also with his friend. And I'm just trying to coordinate, right? And people are
Yeah.
calling me. And I realize as people are calling me that this is Joe's wife. This is my best friend. These are people that might know things, but I just don't even answer. And I immediately decide I'm going to head to the hospital where I think that the heli flight is landing. And I realize that I need to tell his mom that he's been in an accident and that I'm heading there. But first, I called her best friend to make sure that she had somebody to be with her while I took off, because he was her only son, and she'd seen him through all of these same accidents I had,
Yeah.
and it was just, I just knew I needed to tell her and not leave her in the dark until I knew, I didn't want to wait and not let her know what was happening. So I went over there very quickly, kissed her on the top of the head, told her I love her, that everything was probably fine, but I needed to head to the hospital, and that I would let her know immediately which one to go to. As soon as I left Liberty Lake, where I live, and started getting on to the freeway where the hospital was about a 15, 20-minute drive, that woman on the flight called me, and I don't even think she was on the flight anymore. Maybe they had just landed. And I said, you didn't call me. And she said, we couldn't call you. She was as stressed as I was. We couldn't call you. He stopped breathing on the flight, and we've been working on him ever since. And when she said that, I just thought everything kind of changed. My whole body literally, my whole body checked out. I can't even explain to you how scared I was and how badly I was shaking. It was one of the weirdest things I've ever experienced. I couldn't quit shaking, but I knew I had to get to the hospital. I had already passed my best friend and another friend and waved at them like, no, I'm not stopping. So they knew which way I was going to. I think they kind of figured out which way I was going. They kind of followed me there. And that's when I knew things might not be going great, is that call from her. And I said, what are you looking at here? What are we looking at? She goes, we're looking at a really bad head trauma. And in actuality, it wasn't anything so much like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So you get to the hospital. I believe you even mentioned something in the book about having somebody help you go from
Yeah.
the car to the hospital.
Yeah, I'm a pretty strong, resilient gal, but that moment, I barely made it. I was crying so hard. I barely made it to the hospital. And I just knew, get there as fast as you can, Kelsy, get there as fast as you can. And when I opened my door, I was trying to step out and my legs were shaking so badly that I knew I couldn't walk by myself. It just didn't feel good. It didn't feel right. And I saw a gal, thankfully, and she just looked like she was grabbing her lunch, and I think she had scrubs on, and I just threw it out there and said, please, I think my husband might be dying. Can you walk me to the front, to the emergency room? I have no idea who she is still, even with the book out and the audiobook out. I have no idea who she is, but she was my little angel that day, because when I got in there, the gal at the front desk kind of made me feel, and I'm sure it was just me and my nerves and my state of,
Shock.
fear,
Yeah.
state of shock and fear, trauma, but I didn't feel really welcome. And she just looked young, like she'd probably never dealt with a trauma thing quite like this. And so I was so glad that gal walked me in, because she kind of helped scoot me back toward the back where Heath was in his room. And yeah.
Yeah. So after he passed away, to be able to begin on a healing journey, how were you able to put yourself in the right frame of mind? I mean, I don't even know how to really describe it. To be able to start on a healing journey from losing someone who was so close to you. You had a support system. I mean, and just you had a lot of great friends and support and family and all that. Was there anything that you can share that maybe can help other people who may be going through trauma about how to at least start the healing process?
Yes, but I want to go back just a minute, because I think one of the things that helped me feel like I could heal is that I knew Heath knew how much I loved him, and I knew how much he loved me. And I think there were so many relationships where days go by where you don't hug or you don't kiss or you don't even say, "Hey, I hope you had a great day. Welcome home. Love you." Just being that supportive, loving person that you probably, he married you for that, or you married, each other for reasons.
Yeah.
Life gets in the way. Kids and family make it busy. Sports and all the activities and work, it makes it busy. But you've got to remind your person how much you love them all the time, because you don't know. I never thought I would lose Heath. I mean, he had 19 lives. Who knows? I just kept keeping count. Oh, he's going to make it. He's fine. You just don't know. So for me, that was the first step, was being able to give myself grace, that I knew he knew how much I loved him. And that was a big one, just to give yourself grace for that, for anything. I mean, maybe even if you had a disagreement the day before, you've got to give yourself grace. None of this happened because of you, ever. So I think one of my biggest parts too is, I mean, I feel like that first 6 months, I was a zombie. I don't really even remember trying to heal. I just was getting through step by step, day by day, trying to make sure everybody was taken care of. But the grace is a big part, and grit. You have to learn to be resilient, especially if you're a woman left alone who has, I mean, we did everything together, but there are a lot of women out there who don't know anything about their finances, who don't know anything about how to change an air filter, or even some women don't even know how to fill their own gas tank. So, I mean, and that sounds dumb, but I do know some women who do not fill their own gas tank. You've got to give yourself grace and grit.
And I think one of the beautiful aspects of your book on this part of your journey after you lost Heath is, again, part of the love story. And part of the love story is the fact that you have been given signs, and I'm sure you still get signs from Heath. And that is a beautiful thing. I want to touch on that. We have to take one more quick break,
Okay.
but I do want to touch on that aspect of it, because that I feel brings hope, in a sense, healing. There's a lot of things, and I'd love to get your take on that, but we'll do that when we come back. This is the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. My very special guest is Kelsy McHenry. We'll be right back.
Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense Radio Show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation.
And welcome back to the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. Thank you so much for joining. My very special guest is Kelsy McHenry. She published an awesome book called The Husband on Loan from Heaven, did a fabulous audiobook of course, you, Kelsy, telling your story, because no one can tell that story better than you. You lived it, you breathed it, you expressed it in your unique style, and which, again, makes sense. What I really enjoy about your story, and we're gonna talk about this, is there is light at the end of the tunnel. There is healing. There is a way to I don't know if it's necessarily overcoming grief, because it's always there, like it lives in us, but there's ways of being able to deal with it. And Heath has been showing you signs ever since he left this plane and now is on a heavenly plane. Can you share a story about that?
Yes, I actually have one that is so interesting. When I got dressed today for this, I was looking for a certain color of a bracelet, and I grabbed a couple and I put it on, and then I looked down half an hour later and I thought, oh my gosh, I'm wearing the bracelet that Heath gave me. Now, when I say Heath gave me, what I mean is, and this is just one of the signs that he's shown me repeatedly over and over. I go to San Diego quite often. I call that my happy place. I just love to walk on the beach and let go of everything. And so I ask Heath for signs. I ask my loved ones for signs, but he seems to be the one that shows them to me, not anybody else in the my family that's in heaven. And so one day I was walking and I said, Heath, I would love for you to show me, and this sounds like a lot, but I want a piece of jewelry. I want a piece of jewelry. And about an hour later, this bracelet, and it's meant to be something to do with the water. This bracelet was sitting out on top of a dried pile of kelp at the end of the beach where no one was besides a bunch of surfers, so it had washed up. And I just looked up. I got immediately covered in chills, which I call truth bumps, not goosebumps, because it's the truth. It's from the universe telling you the truth. And I just, every time I get a sign, I always say, thank you, thank you. I usually thank Heath and the universe, because who knows really, right? But that happens repeatedly when I'm in San Diego. One time I said, show me just something so crazy I won't believe it. Make it really cool. And, he had a big personality, so I expect big things. I'm probably a high-maintenance widow. I've said that before. So one day, in almost the exact same spot, and this is a whole different trip to San Diego. This is maybe 6 months later. Almost the exact same spot, I see a little bit of green mixed in with green kelp, and I look over, and there is a $20 bill. All wadded up, like it came out of somebody's pocket off of a boat or something, all wadded up. There was no one around. I wasn't stealing it. So I go to grab it and I bend down and I look down and there are a pair of Ray-Bans, silver Ray-Bans, like right behind it. And it was covered in kelp. I had to pull the Ray-Bans out. Again, nobody set those down and like went swimming. They were covered in kelp. They smelled like seaweed. It was just seriously, I love those things. I love the signs. It's what gets me through. It is what gets me through. You asked what helped my healing, and I would say speaking with my medium friends and realizing that there are signs that can be found.
Yeah, that is beautiful, and it's great to know that you have someone up in heaven who is there looking out after you. I mean, we have a lot of people in heaven that are looking out after us, but you have a very special person to do
Mhm.
that. Now, when you were doing the audiobook, was it a different experience narrating and like telling the story as opposed to when you were writing the story? What was that like?
It really was. It really was. Writing it, just kind of flowed and I didn't necessarily, I mean, obviously some of the sad parts, like telling my kids about his passing and things like that, those are always going to be hard. But I had
Yeah,
not read the full book after I wrote it. I read it as I edited it. I can't
yeah.
speak. But I didn't read it in full. I just read like a couple chapters and then I kind of set it aside. So when I started listening to it with your amazing expertise and knowledge and your support, because wow, I needed a cheerleader. I don't think I was I think I thought I wasn't super capable of this, and you really made me feel opposite, and I'm so grateful for you. But
Thank you.
listening to myself tell the story, I was crying. It was like a whole different way of hearing the story, to hear my own
Mm.
voice. It was, yeah, really very touching and kind of
And you
heart
did
wrenching sometimes.
well. You did a fantastic job, and that's the beauty again of you telling your own story because again, no one can express it the way you can, and there's those emotions that only you can tap into. No one
Yep.
else on this planet can tap into that. And the other beautiful thing about doing what you did and putting it in audiobook form is now you've left a legacy. You've left a legacy for people to hear you, the actual person, tell the story for generations to come. So people can hear you tell your story, not someone else tell your story for you. And
Mm-hmm.
that is such a great thing. I know we're almost out of time. I want people to be able to find you, to hear your podcast, follow you on Instagram. Uh, what's the best way for people to follow you and listen to your podcast?
If you go to www.kelsy, Kelsy, not SEY, McHenry.com, you can get to all of the podcasts. There's information about The Husband on Loan from Heaven, as well as the next book that's coming out that's completely different and it's fiction. And it also will share about upcoming events for our Bloom events for women. So I've kind of got a little bit of everything on there. Or if you're on Instagram like I am all the time, then you can find me at Bloom with Kelsy. Again, Kelsy. Thanks, Mom, for
Awesome.
making it so hard. So
Oh,
extra.
that's easy to remember. It's good. It's good. And what's really interesting, and I'm not going to give it away because it's in the book, but you do share Instagram posts through your healing journey, and I think the way you presented it was pretty brilliant as part of the healing process. So you're going to have to buy the book. You're going to have to listen to the audiobook. You got to do it. This is a great book. I feel honored to have been able to help you create this great audiobook, and I love it. I love the story. I really love
Oh, thank
how you
you.
presented, and it really is. It's a beautiful love story. You know, you're talking about that. I'm thinking, you know, when you're saying, tell your significant other, you know, that you love them, and that all those things that a lot of time we don't think about, or we don't do enough. So I'm thinking,
Mhm.
can I do that with my wife? Yeah, we do that. We say that all the time, and that's good. So I'm like, okay, I'm on the good graces now.
You're good, Robert. You're good. I've had a lot of people, especially women, reach out and say, "Oh, you just reminded me I don't need to nag about the socks on the floor. I don't need to nag about the cap off of the toothpaste lid." I'm like, "That's what I'm trying to tell you. It's not. It doesn't matter in the scheme of things."
Yeah, absolutely. Kelsey,
Yeah.
thank you so much for being on the podcast today. Your story is fantastic, and the extra stories you shared were incredible. And I just hope that people who listen to this podcast now will have more hope, and that you can get through some really tough times. So thank you again. Again, KelseyMcHenry.com. Please follow her and follow Kelsey on Instagram. This is the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. My last little assignment is this: when you're out and about in the public, smile at a stranger, say hello to them, give them a compliment, because that small gesture of kindness can make the world a difference in somebody's life.
Yep.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So be a life changer. We'll talk to you on the next week's podcast. Thank you so much. I'm Robert A. Lane. This is the Your Book, Your Voice podcast. We're streaming live on the Bold Brave TV network. Have a great week, my friends. Take care.
This has been Your Book, Your Voice with host Robert A. Lane. Tune in each week for another powerful and informative episode of Your Book, Your Voice, Thursdays, 8 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave TV network.